Hello and welcome to the Candlelight Podcast, where I, Mohamed Abdalla, talk about different topics, including some of my favorites, which are movies, martial arts, and philosophy. Yes, this is what I look like. And guys, since this is the 25th episode, I'd like to, do something different, as I usually like to do, more or less, and show you guys my face for once. Well, is this gonna be an every episode type of thing? Not sure yet, but maybe it will be, maybe not. We'll see. Really depends on how it looks and how I feel about it, really. And so this is what I look like, and this is the first time I put a video of myself in the podcast. I've done videos before, but not videos of myself necessarily. Just random videos here and there of movie scenes or what have you. But this is the very first podcast where I put myself in front of the camera. So, hey, let's see how this goes. Yeah, and as you can see how the way I'm dressed, I am very much an Emirati. I am an Emirati local مواطن وافتخر, and I'm proud of it. But not in a bad kind of pride, in a good kind of pride, a healthy kind of pride. The kind of pride that the Prophet of God, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, would be accepting of, would be tolerant of. And speaking of the Prophet of God, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, peace be upon him, our quote for today's video, the 25th episode of the Candlelight Podcast, comes from none other than him. Since it's a special episode, I have to, get a quote from the most special of all people. And that is none other than the Prophet of God. So let's start with this week's quote. إنما شفاء العي السؤال. Sallallahu alayhi wasallam says, إنما شفاء العي السؤال. Meaning, the cure for ignorance is to question, is to inquire. So, very straightforward, very simple. خير الكلام ما قل ودل. The best kind of speech is that which is direct and leads you to the conclusion. Something that I, again, as I said this before on this podcast, something that I need to implement myself. But, so go back to the quote. So, we as humans should not be afraid to ask. Do not be afraid to ask. Do not feel ashamed to ask. The words "I don't know" should be a staple of our conversations as humans. It's only natural to us that we do not know everything, and we won't know everything. We have to understand our limits. We have to understand where our knowledge stops and where it can use some growth. We can't just, go ahead and say, answer everything as if we were solidly convinced and confident that this is true. We can with a lot of things, definitely, for sure, but not everything. We can't, go around acting as if we have all the answers, because we don't. No human does. Not even the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He doesn't have all the answers, but he does have the most important answers to the most important questions, and that's what really matters. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the greatest man to have ever lived, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, gave us so many ahadith, so many great sayings, so many great words that we can all benefit from. And this is just one saying of his that we can really benefit from. And I really want to focus a lot, as I always say, this podcast has to be something that people will benefit from, something that's going to help people out there, wherever they are in the world. And I just realized that I left my AC on, and that's going to create some background noise, which I did not intend to have. But hey, never mind. Hopefully, I'll be able to fix this in post, as every multimedia designer, filmmaker says. So going back to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Prophet of God, he left such a lasting legacy that just for the struggles of one man over 23 years of his lifetime, he impacted so many lives. So many lives of people he did not even yet get to meet. Hopefully we will get to meet in the future, in the hereafter, in the afterlife. However, we are not at that time yet. We're not there yet. We will be soon. Bi'idhnillah. God willing. So, yeah. A lot of great quotes, and one of them is this. إِنَّمَا شِفَاءُ الْعِيِّ السُّؤَالِ. Ask. The cure to ignorance is to ask. You can ask. It's not something to be ashamed of. You can seek knowledge. In fact, you're encouraged to seek knowledge. You're supposed to ask when you don't know. You're supposed to inquire about some things that you need more knowledge of. Don't be afraid to, say something. Try to think of an example at the top of my head. Let's say you're a student in class, you don't know the answer to a particular question, you raise your hand and you ask, so that when the test comes, you don't make the mistake that you could have avoided by just simply asking, for example. So that's really, what I want to really do in this podcast. Make sure that you guys benefit and be, help yourselves grow as humans, self-actualize, be better. If this podcast, if this podcast or any other podcast, out there for that matter, helps you become a better person, go for it, listen to it. And I really hope that you guys are benefiting from this podcast, or else I'm doing this all for naught. I'm doing this for no reason. The reason that I'm trying to, at least work and strive towards, my goal here is to help provide you guys something that's somewhat entertaining, like Mel Gibson's 3 E's. I think I mentioned this before. Mel Gibson, the filmmaker's 3 E's when it comes to filmmaking. 3 E's. First of all, entertain. You need to entertain your audience that are going to watch the content that you're going to produce. Second of all, is you need to educate, and third of all, you need to elevate. Make them feel like they're in higher spirits than they were before they've heard or listened or watched your content. So that's what I'm trying to do here. That's what I try to do here in this podcast. That is the Candlelight Podcast. Guys, let's see. Actually, I have a bunch of things to actually talk about today, but man, it's just so interesting. This is a different dynamic. I'm not looking at my notes constantly, and as I'm talking to the mic, I'm looking at you guys. I'm not even looking at what I'm supposed to say. I'm just freestyling at this point. Well, and the things that I have is not exactly, word for word what I have to say necessarily the entire podcast. No, it's just talking points. And sometimes, sentences. A sentence that I need to remember because it's important. For example, the quotes at the beginning of the episodes. That's where I get it from, It's right here in the notes in front of me where I can just read off of. So, and wow, guys, just like that, just looking at the recording, it's already 7.5 minutes, which is interesting. And I didn't even get to the first thing right after the quote, which I wanted to talk about, which is I started a stretching routine, actually. A stretching routine that, I'm going to follow in this month. Actually, I'm going to put it right on the screen right now, where you can see how for the next 30 days, how I'm going to actually follow this routine, this schedule of stretching, where I'm going to be, just busy 10 minutes a day, just stretching and hopefully becoming more flexible. Because the stretching routine that I'm following right now is something that's very simple, and its goal is to help you achieve the middle splits. And that's something that I've always wanted to be able to do. And now I'll be able to do it, hopefully, if I properly follow this routine for the next month or two. And that's something that I'm doing right now. And the way it works is that first of all, I warm up for about 5 minutes, make sure my blood is flowing, make sure I'm building up some sweat, because I can't really stretch on a cold cold muscles. That's not good for you. And I'm actually after the 5 minutes of stretching, warming up, I stretch for 10 minutes. 10 minutes of stretching in intervals. So 1 minute of stretching, 1 minute of rest, 1 minute of stretching, 1 minute of rest, until I reach the 10-minute limit. And the way I do that is I simply just do the stretch that I want to be able to do, which is the splits. I get myself into the split position and, hang on to yoga blocks that I have, and I just kind of stay there for a minute, pushing myself, and then rest for a minute, and then go back to 1 minute of pushing myself. And that's what I'm doing so far. And I'm only on I think day 2 or 3, actually. I think I'm on the 3rd day, and tomorrow is the 4th day. And that's how it's going so far. And I'll update you guys on, actually, if you guys like, I post some before and after pics of how I look, how I seem, how I kind of started with and how I ended with, at least for the first month. Or if I decide to continue to do it after that. I do want to, get into shape and remain in shape. I don't want to just get into shape and just, lose it. What's the point then? You're climbing the mountain. Why would you want to, go back down? No, stay up there. Stay up. Good for you. So that's actually with regard to stretching. And that's not even talking about, what I'm gonna do for fitness, which is lifting weights and going for runs and doing some cardio and all that stuff. That's what I'm trying to work on, trying to better myself, trying to become a better human being, get a better, more stronger body. Something I aim to do, and something we should all be aiming to do, because a good a strong body helps the mind become stronger as well. And also one of the reasons I'm doing this is to build some confidence that I can actually achieve something physical. It's been a while since my last physical achievement, which was a marathon that I've done and finished amazingly. It's been a while since that. It was before COVID, before all of that, and I really want to be able to show myself that I can still reach those next level and break that next level in fitness and break my limits, whatever they are. In this case, stretching, how flexible I am, and basically build some confidence that I can do those things. And confidence is not built except with competence. So once I gain the confidence level would increase with it. So let's say, and this is actually an important thing. Your confidence shouldn't be over your competence level. And your competence level should not be over your confidence level. You should be as confident as you are competent, or else you'll be overconfident or underconfident, both equally bad things. So, and speaking of speaking of confidence, I just listened to Firas Zahabi's podcast, Coach Firas Zahabi's podcast. Sorry, excuse me for that. So I have to properly address him as coach, because he is my elder. I have to put some respect on his name. Literally, I'm not even kidding here. So yeah, I was listening to him talking about a child who really lacked confidence in one of his classes, because he teaches jiu-jitsu in Montreal, Quebec at TriStar Gym, and his channel on YouTube is called TriStar Gym, by the way. Look him up. He's amazing. He's gonna benefit you way more than I could right now here at this stage of my life. He's been there, done that. He's a very accomplished person with regard to his coaching, because he's coached world-class talent in MMA, in the MMA sphere, and he's also a, not necessarily renowned, but a very, in my very humble opinion, a very great thinker, a very great free thinker, who actually, he has such an understanding of philosophy and the way to convey, knowledge and wisdom without the ego that is attached to it, without putting himself as the measure of all things. No, he knows how to utilize philosophy to get to the truth of things, to get down to what is really important in this life, and that's something that I admire from him. He's amazing. And so speaking of the confidence, going back to the confidence thing, there was a child in his class that was very unconfident. He was very nervous, very neurotic, very he was talking about him. He was describing how this child was very anxious about everything. He had to know what he was going to do that day in the afternoon, in the evening, next morning, and he just was an anxious kid. And this kid was one of his friends' kids. So the kid that he was coaching, his father, he knows him well, and he wouldn't have done what I'm about to tell you that he did without the consent, without the fact, without having known his father so well. So this kid was very anxious. He didn't like the first time he went to training. Firas told his friend to bring his kid to training, because to help him build some confidence at least. And in the very first minute of training, he cried. He just burst into tears, and he ran to his father. And his father told him that, hey, if you don't want to continue, you don't have to continue. We're not gonna push you here. It's gonna be okay. And then Firas was taken aback by that and thinking, what in the world are you teaching your kid? You're teaching your kid to quit when things get rough. You're teaching your kid to just run for help. His father will be here. His mother will be here to have his back, and not let him to fend for himself, not to let him build some character, because that is important. And this is something that I really want to understand more, how to help kids build character, how to, first of all, obviously, help myself build the best character that I can achieve, and then, help kids as well. Because I've got younger sisters, younger brothers, and younger cousins, and I'm really around them a lot, and I want to make sure that I'm a good role model, first and foremost, for me, and then for them, and make sure that they grow up healthy and having a good mindset, have a make sure they all have good heads on their shoulders, and they grow up to be competent, capable adults, and that know how to take care of themselves, build some character. So Firas was talking about how he told his friend, leave this kid with me. I'm gonna teach him. I'm gonna coach him properly. I'm gonna show him how to be more secure in what he's doing, because the kid was very insecure and very anxious. And fast forward 5 years, Firas says after 5 years of training, this kid is just amazing. He's not only confident, he's super competent at what he does, which is jiu-jitsu. He's been training jiu-jitsu for 5 years, and he's just a star on the mat. He's, really good. This is Firas's words. He's saying that this kid went from this anxious little kid who didn't know, he was 5 years old at the time, was very insecure, and now he is just such a dominant force on the mat that other kids are being dominated by him, and he's just very good and very confident in what he can do and what he's accomplished, what he can achieve. And that's just an interesting story. I really enjoy listening to his podcasts. I really enjoy listening to all these wisdoms that he provides and all these insights that he has as a coach, as a person whose job is to make sure that another person is mentally ready to step into the fire and come back unscathed. And maybe they come back scathed, even get some scars along the way. But no, he has to kind of coach them on how to deal with that. And that's his specialty, and that's what he's good at. He's a teacher, a really great teacher. Man, guys, Coach Firas Zahabi's podcast, you guys won't be wrong. You guys can't go wrong listening to him. You'll definitely benefit in some way. So that was something, I want to actually talk about. And speaking of Firas as well, I finally finished his first podcast with Subboor, the thing that I've been telling you guys about, and man, was it just a fountain of knowledge. There was a whole lot to process in that podcast, which is to be expected when those two minds come together to discuss philosophy. I might have to rewatch in order to take some notes, take some proper notes in order to benefit from at least 10% of what was said in that podcast. And boy, there was a lot that was said. Good 2 hours, I think, of just them talking. I had to listen to it in bits and pieces in the span of a bunch of, in the span of maybe like 2 weeks in order to fully try my best to digest it and understand. And by the way, it's a good idea to include in my podcast the summary of what I feel are the most important talks that exist on the internet. Like videos that discuss philosophy and important topics that I feel that are important. Why not actually just make summaries of them and comment them under the video, and also actually talk about them, somewhat on the podcast. Like talk about, this is a video that was interesting that I watched, and here's my summary of it, where I kind of like put forward the most important points, and where I benefited from, and hopefully you guys can benefit from as well. Because there's so many good videos on the internet, so many great videos, so many very important videos that we as humans, have to, watch and understand and contemplate on. So many great things, so much interesting and fascinating and important, vital topics. Something important to our being as humans, timeless. Not necessarily us today, but us as humans for generations and generations before and generations to come. Things that are timeless, principles that have to be understood. So, philosophy is just it's a hobby of mine. I like it. I like discourse. I like discussing and thinking about what is true, what isn't. How do we know what's true? How do we know what isn't? And what are the different ways we can get to know what is true? Interesting stuff. I'm telling you, if you want a good start to that, check out Firas Zahabi. And last week I linked a bunch of channels that talk about these things, including Subboor's channel and including Coach Firas Zahabi's channel. So guys, check them out. Check out those channels. I'm gonna actually link a few videos that I feel like are a good starter to the philosophy that I'm into philosophy, something that I really enjoy. So, moving on to MMA news, which I haven't done in a while, actually. It's been a long time since I've talked about MMA. Man, and we've only got about 10 minutes left on this podcast to talk about anything related to that. So, we have a lot to talk about. Let's hope we can get through it within 10 minutes. All right, let's see what we have. So, in MMA news, UFC 263 results. I haven't talked about these results in a long time. I should have talked about it before, but man, I just, the podcast time just runs out before I even know it, and I can't even get to them. So, UFC 263 was last month's UFC event, and the UFC 264 is next week. So, what is going on here? What happened in UFC 263? Well, Belal Muhammad fought Damian Maia, and Belal Muhammad won a dominant 3-round decision. Good for him. Beat Damian Maia, who's on his way out, because he's not really the sharpest tool in the shed anymore. I think I used that wrong. I kind of called him dumb, no? Did I? I think I just called him dumb. No, I don't mean that. He's not really the youngest person on the roster right now. And Belal Muhammad is on his way up, and good for him. I really hope he gets up there. I hope he really reaches that elite level. And speaking of elite at welterweight, well, Leon Edwards fought as well, but he fought someone who's way out of his, not in his league, which is Nate Diaz. Nate Diaz is a star. He's famous. He brings in the money, brings in the views, but he isn't at the level of Leon Edwards, as we've seen in the very first 24 minutes of the fight. It was a 5-round fight. The first 24 minutes of the fight, Leon was dominating, picking him apart, just, touching him up. And Diaz just did what Diaz does, taunt, bleed, and take shots at the chin very, very well. But then that last minute of the fight happened where Diaz somehow, in some way, rocked Leon Edwards. He rocked him with a good left, and Leon was stumbling all over the place, and Nate, instead of finishing the fight with a minute left, he just taunts and basically does nothing. He doesn't capitalize on the moment and doesn't finish Leon Edwards. It would have been crazy if he did that, but he didn't do that. But still, that's the one thing that everybody remembers from the fight, is that how Nate Diaz almost beat Leon Edwards, and he had him hurt bad. And man, he may have lost the fight by a dominant 49-46 decision, but he won the moral fight at the end because he was able to rock a top five fighter in the welterweight division. Good for him, though. And then we come to the co-main event, which is Davison Figueiredo versus Brandon Moreno, the two Latino fighters who are, who fought to a draw the last time they fought, and now are fighting again for the lightweight strap. And now we saw who the better fighter truly was by Brandon Moreno finishing Davison Figueiredo in the 3rd round. I didn't expect that. I actually expected Figueiredo to beat Moreno in the 2nd. But Moreno just, man, as an underdog, he did amazing. He was winning. He was outclassing Figueiredo the whole fight. And then he submits him in the 3rd with one of the most beautiful, beautiful takedown to transition to taking the back to, sliding, getting the choke in. Just amazing sequence of events, sequence of actions that Moreno performed that were so crisp, so perfect that they got him the victory. Good for him. Viva Mexico. They've got a champion now. La Campeón. Man, it was such a feel-good moment too. He was crying. He couldn't believe it. And man, the energy was just different. And Davis Figueiredo was being a good sport, and he actually congratulated Moreno. Amazing thing to see. It was really cool. That was the feel good. That was the highlight of that. That was one of the highlights of that card. The other one being when Diaz rocked Edwards, obviously. And then we come to the main event, which was roughly, which was basically, not really a banger. It was just Izzy Cruz to, Israel Adesanya versus Marvin Vettori, that is. Izzy Cruz to a decision win. Well, not really that, interesting, not really that fascinating, just that Izzy was, a level above Marvin Vettori, and that showed. he was the better fighter. He won a comfortable, a relatively comfortable decision, and that's about it. That's about it. 50-45. Adesanya. He's still the middleweight champ, and he gets back to the win column after he lost to Jan Blachowicz, and yeah, was just that really. Nothing much to say there. However, except for Izzy having these really weird, just weird antics where he kind of does some weird things, such as what he did at the end of the Paulo Costa fight after he beat him. Just did such an unsportsmanlike thing, and then now he does even more of that sort of behavior. Really makes him makes me like him less as a person and as a fighter, because I don't really divorce these two things, a person and a fighter. No, you have to, for me, in order for me to like you, I couldn't look past your personal behavior and how you treat the fellow people that are fighting you, because these are your kind of like workmates. Is that the right word? What is the right word for zumala in English? How is it? Business partners, I guess. So yeah, bad behavior from him. Disgusting. Just why? That's all I could think about was this. Why? Why do this? It was ridiculous. And yeah, that's about it. That was the UFC 263 card. Really was a good card, solid card. Great names, stacked and delivered. And speaking of stacked cards, to UFC 264. That card is just, littered with amazing fights from the prelims to the main card. Man, so many good fights to see. Like, let's see. What were the prelims again? I believe, a bunch of, well-known names from the UFC are fighting. Just 1 second. Let me look real quick. UFC 264. Oh, boy. I really hope I can, get through this card fast, before time runs out for the podcast. So, yeah, you've got Ryan Hall finally, who's coming back to fight Ilia Topuria, who's undefeated 10-0, and you've got Nico Price versus Michael Pereira, which is an amazing fight. It's gonna be an exciting one. And you've got Carlos Condit versus Max Griffin, and then you've got the main card. Oh man! So Sean O'Malley is fighting on the main card, but his opponent, I believe his name was something Luis Smolka. Yeah, he pulled out, and now he's fighting someone else. It's a whole situation that happened where opponents wouldn't make the weight, and they can't fight at 135, and he has to fight opponent after opponent, and they settled with someone called Chris Moutinho, and apparently he's an unranked fighter. He doesn't seem to deserve to be with Sean O'Malley on to fight against him, but hey, that's a last minute replacement, so what can you do? So, and after that, we've got, Gilbert Burns versus Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. What a great fight this is going to be. We're going to see if Stephen Thompson still has what it takes to compete at the elite level, which I believe he does. And I hope he wins, and I hope he gets a title shot from this fight. He deserves it. Hopefully he gets the title shot against Usman after Colby Covington. And then you've got the main card. Dustin the Diamond Poirier versus the... Sorry about that, guys. It just cut off because 30 minutes, I think, is the maximum time you can record for on this my camera before, it shutting off. Sorry about that. I guess I have to figure out the settings and make sure, that doesn't happen again. So, Conor McGregor versus Dustin Poirier. The third fight, the trilogy. Excited for it, obviously. We're going to see who is the better fighter once and for all. I think it's Poirier, but this fight is very 50-50 because Conor has that knockout power. Maybe not as good as it was in 145. It's still pretty good at 155. But does he have what it takes to outclass Poirier? Or is he just going to be on the receiving end of, another knockout, another finish? Because Poirier is obviously the more skilled fighter, it seems, at least from the last fight. And he also the smarter fighter, not to mention. But is that going to be enough to beat Conor McGregor and be able to defend against Conor's punches, which are, seemingly, more powerful than Poirier's? So we'll see if that is the case. Man, it was just an awesome fight the second time they fought around, which was in the beginning of the year. It's crazy. It's been, the amazing fights we've had since then, since January. Just an amazing year for MMA. So yeah, I'm really excited to see what happens here. And guys, With that said, this was the Candlelight Podcast by yours truly, Mohamed Abdalla. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope you come back for more. And once again, إنما شفاء العي السؤال. The cure to ignorance is to question. See you guys in the next one. Peace.